All right, so we're jumping into learning about HTML, and it's 1:44 in the morning, so we'll see how long I can keep going until I crash. But the first thing we're going to learn about is the history of HTML, and so really that's like the history of the internet and the World Wide Web. And this is what I want you to trip out on a little bit. So let me just go to like Reddit or something, and then if I right click and choose inspect, it's going to bring up what was sent to my computer, right? And so here is what was sent to my computer when I went to Reddit. Well, I don't want to move that, but it's all of this stuff right down here, okay? So that was all sent. I don't know why that just got highlighted. That was all sent when I went to Reddit. So this came over to my computer. It's just a bunch of text, and when my computer received it, it was in a browser, and so the browser took all of that information and it turned it into, excuse me, it turned it into this. That's pretty interesting. And so when the internet was first created, people were just sending text back and forth to each other. But then this guy, Tim Berners-Lee, and he's the father of the World Wide Web. So the internet and the World Wide Web are two different things. And Tim Berners-Lee said, well, we're sending text. Maybe we could mark that text up and we could add tags to it. So he could add tags like, I'm just looking here for a tag which is something other than a div. And let me open one of them up. I'll open that one. And here's an anchor tag, right, which is a hyperlink. And so we could add an anchor tag, or let me just see if there's anything else in here. We could add a paragraph. So I add this paragraph tag right here, and it has this paragraph of information. So we could add different tags to it, like the paragraph starts with a P and it ends with a /P, right? So it's an opening and closing tag. And then we could send that text, because all we're doing is sending text. And then we could have a piece of software take that text and look at it and then format the text for us. And so the piece of software is a browser. So we're sending text back and forth. The browser renders that text, looks at that text, and then figures out which are the tags and which, what's the content to display and how should it be displayed. And then the browser does all that formulating and creates these images for us of a web page, the way it should look. Because what I received, I did not receive something that looked like this. My browser made it look like this. What I received was all of this down here, all of this text. Kind of crazy. So that's Tim Berners-Lee. He's the father of the internet. And how would you like to have that as something on your resume? I invented the internet, or sorry, he's the father of the World Wide Web, right? Inventor of the World Wide Web. So I said there's a difference between the World Wide Web and the internet. So we're going to step back to the 60s. We're going to learn about the internet and how it was created. And then we'll see where the World Wide Web was created and at what point in the process that was created. All right, so back in the 60s, the internet wasn't called the internet. It was called the Arpanet. And it was called Arpanet because it was created by DARPA. And DARPA is the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, right? So pretty interesting organization. And they do all kinds of things which they can't tell us about. And they're building things they can't tell us about. It's basically like the people who create the cool James Bond machines. And so Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, they created this network, Arpanet. And the network was created because of this. And they were concerned that if nuclear war was to occur, that that lines of communication would be destroyed. Because back in the day, the way we communicated was with circuit switching networks, right? Circuit switch networks. And so that sounds complicated, but you've seen it in old movies. This is a circuit switch network. So if one person wants to talk to another person, a physical line is connected between those two people, right? And then if that line got cut, like if the line was going from LA to DC and it went through Denver or something and Denver got blown up, those two people would no longer be communicating. So that was circuit switching. And then packet switching was this idea that we could break a message up into packets and it could be routed over a network. The different packets could be routed over a network. So routers would route the packets over a network, and then the packets would be reassembled at their destination. So the routers would figure out what route do I need to send this packet on to get to its destination. If the route through Denver no longer existed, they just find another route. So it was no longer a circuit switch where it's just like a circuit was created between 2 points, excuse me, but it was packet switched, right? So the packets would find their own way over the network to their destination, whatever channels whatever channels they need to take to get there. And so that was why Arpanet was created and how it worked. And so you can see some images of the original Arpanet, right? The different connections that the network had, and that was like back in the day. And this is a really good image to illustrate a circuit switch network. And then the packet switch network was this idea that we could break a message up into packets. You can pause the video and just read this, just a website I found really quickly. But this idea we could break a message up into packets, and then those packets could find their destination by any number of routes. All right. So then, originally it was military, then it was opened up to academia, and then in the early 90s, 1993, Tim Berners-Lee was working at this place called CERN, and CERN is the Center for European Nuclear Research, and he came up with this idea that we could start formatting all of this text with markup tags, with different tags, and then we'd have browsers render it. He created that and built all that. So he's the father, the inventor of the World Wide Web, and that happened in 1993, I believe, though I don't see the year right there. I'm not a big, year person. So anyhow, that's like the history of HTML and the internet and the World Wide Web. So the internet was like, this network that sent text back and forth. And then the World Wide Web was this idea of taking that text and making web pages with hyperlinks and hypertext. He called it hypertext, and it'd have hyperlinks in it. And sending that text over a network, and then a computer could take it and display it in a formatted way. And that was the World Wide Web. So pretty amazing. And that's the beginning. So in the next, all the rest of the videos, we're going to learn how to take that text we're sending over this network, the internet, and format it in certain ways so that when it's received, a browser can look at that text and then render it to display a page in a certain way. All right, it's going to be fun.